The Galactic Empire's declaration of war came without warning, transmitted across every human screen and frequency. Their message was clear, their arrogance suffocating. "This is your only warning, inhabitants of Earth," the voice boomed, translated perfectly into every language. It was deep and resonant, a sound that carried with it absolute authority. "The Galactic Empire has chosen to conquer your world. You will submit or you will perish. You are insignificant, soft, and primitive, a species undeserving of the stars. This will not take long." The broadcast showed their fleet, monolithic ships the size of cities, hovering above distant stars, their metal exteriors gleaming with the light of countless suns. Hundreds of them, no thousands, marching silently through the void of space like gods claiming their domain. To any observer, their power was undeniable. Humans watched in silence. Across Earth, fear spread like wildfire. News anchors sat stunned, trying to process the audacity of it all. Videos dissecting the Empire's message flooded the internet within minutes. What chance did Earth have against them? Some murmured about surrender, arguing it was the only logical path to survival. Others called for prayers, hoping for a miracle. But for humanity's leaders, there was no time for speeches or despair. Behind closed doors, inside war rooms deep underground, humanity's response began to take shape. Among them, Earth's most dangerous asset had already been activated. The Galactic Empire knew nothing about Navy SEALs. The aliens, for all their pomp and grandeur, saw only numbers, technological might, planetary conquests, and overwhelming firepower. To them, war was an act of domination, not survival. They expected their enemies to kneel, as every species before had done. They could not fathom a species that had clawed its way to the stars through millennia of conflict, a species that refused to kneel. One soldier, a SEAL team leader, watched the Empire's broadcast in a dimly lit briefing room. The Galactic Overlord's voice faded into silence as the transmission ended, leaving only the flickering glow of the screen. The room was quiet, but the air felt electric. "They have no idea what they've just done," he muttered. Wordlessly, he and his team began to prepare. The SEALs moved with purpose, methodical in their actions, their faces expressionless. This wasn't the first time they'd been outnumbered. It wouldn't be the last. Every weapon, every piece of gear was checked and rechecked. Bullets were counted. Knives were sharpened. Explosives were wired. There was no fear among them, only focus. These were men who had trained in the harshest conditions imaginable, whose lives had been dedicated to mastering the art of warfare. They were ghosts, invisible and lethal. To them, the Empire wasn't a force to be feared, it was just another mission. "They're up there, sitting pretty," one of them said quietly, loading a magazine with practiced ease. "Bet they think they've already won? Let's remind them what a mistake that was." No one laughed. There was no bravado here. Just calm professionalism. While Earth held its breath, hoping for mercy, the SEAL team prepared to take the fight to the enemy. Their mission was as impossible as it was simple. Infiltrate the flagship of the Galactic Empire and cripple its command. The Empire's fleet may have been invincible in size and power, but even giants fall when struck in the right place. The aliens believed their warships were impenetrable fortresses, impervious to attack. What they didn't realize was that a handful of humans, equipped with the right tools and an unyielding will to win, could turn a fortress into a tomb. Across the galaxy, the Empire celebrated the inevitability of their victory, their broadcasts echoing across hundreds of star systems. Their fleets continued to advance toward Earth, unstoppable and unchallenged. Their leaders spoke of conquest, laughing at the primitive planet that dared to defy them. None of them noticed the small human vessel, cloaked and silent, slipping through the void. Inside, the SEAL team sat, their expressions unreadable. The SEAL leader checked his watch and spoke quietly into his radio. "Contact in 30. Let's show these bastards what humans can do." The team consisted of the best, soldiers honed in battle and disciplined beyond imagination. Each member had a specific role, a skill sharpened to deadly precision. They moved in sync, their communication silent, relying on glances and subtle hand signals. Inside the cloaked shuttle, the hum of engines was the only sound, vibrating faintly beneath their feet. Blueprints of the alien flagship glowed on their tablet screens, data stolen from compromised Empire channels. They studied the layout, memorizing every corridor, blind spot, and vent that could be used to slip undetected past patrols. It wasn't just a plan, it was an understanding, a map branded into their thoughts. The briefing was quick, words clipped and efficient. Main objective, disable command. "We hit hard, sow chaos and get out clean." The SEAL leader's voice was low, calm. He pointed to key nodes on the map. Explosives here and here, secondary power, comm relays. We cripple them, the fleet hesitates. Earth needs that time. Each member nodded, eyes locked in grim determination. There was no room for doubt, no space for hesitation. Their suits were equipped with state-of-the-art cloaking devices and anti-radar plating, experimental tech that had only been tested in controlled environments. But the stakes left no room for caution. Humanity's survival balanced on the edge of a knife, and they would be the blade. Their gear was ready. Suppressed weapons with specialized rounds capable of penetrating advanced alien armor, compact explosives capable of shattering hulls, blades sharp enough to slip between the scales of even the Empire's most fearsome warriors. Their helmets sealed, hiding their faces, transforming them into faceless wraiths. One of the seals shifted, a faint smirk tugging at his lips beneath the visor. They were armed with the knowledge that in combat, surprise and precision would be their deadliest weapons. The Empire didn't know about small unit tactics, had no concept of an elite force able to operate independently behind enemy lines. Their military doctrine revolved around brute force. Legions of soldiers, bombardments that cracked planets, and intimidation through sheer spectacle. They had no playbook for what was coming. Within the flagship, hundreds of aliens monitored vast displays, confident in their technology, unaware of the team that approached them in the darkness. The SEALs knew they were facing unknown biology, soldiers with alien senses that could detect heat or movement. Each potential threat was catalogued in their minds, each variable accounted for. They prepared for the worst, expected the unexpected, and thrived on the chaos that would follow. The SEAL leader closed his eyes for a moment, letting the silence wrap around him. Years of training, countless hours of muscle memory, and battle instinct surged to the forefront. This was what they were made for. 10 seconds to entry, the pilot's voice crackled in their ears, calm and professional. The shuttle's cloaking held strong as it neared the flagship's maintenance hatch, an entry point overlooked in the Empire's arrogance. They were about to introduce the aliens to a different kind of war, one fought not with grand armadas, but with precision and silent fury. Remember, the SEAL leader said, eyes flicking between his team, we're the ghosts they'll never forget. The breach was silent. The maintenance hatch opened with a faint hiss, and the team slipped inside, their movements fluid and deliberate. In the dim light of the alien corridors, they were shadows, nearly invisible in their cloaked suits. They moved in single file, weapons ready, their footsteps muffled by their boots. The first contact came faster than expected. A patrol of alien guards rounded a corner, hulking figures clad in dark armor, their reptilian eyes scanning lazily, unaware. Before they could react, 2 suppressed shots dropped them where they stood, the sharp pops barely audible. The bodies crumpled, and the SEALs dragged them into the shadows without breaking stride. Clear, came the whispered confirmation. They advanced deeper into the flagship, each corridor identical in its cold, sterile construction. The air was thick, artificial, and smelled faintly of metal. Motion sensors and cameras dotted the walls, but human ingenuity had already accounted for them. A jamming device hummed softly on one of the SEALs' belts, feeding false signals to the ship's security systems. To the aliens monitoring the feeds, the corridors appeared empty. The first set of charges went on a power junction, a central point where conduits hummed with energy. The SEAL responsible planted the explosives with practiced efficiency, fingers moving fast as he calibrated the detonation timer. A nod to the team leader and they moved on. Minutes passed, every second tense but controlled. The flagship was alive around them, its alien crew oblivious to the team's presence, a fact that would soon change. Further in, they encountered heavier opposition. A cluster of armored aliens manned a security checkpoint, their weapons glowing with ominous energy. The SEAL team halted, assessing the situation. A quick signal, and one of the soldiers pulled out a small drone, a barely audible mechanical insect. It floated forward, slipping past the checkpoint unseen, feeding live intel back to the team. The SEAL leader signaled. The team split. 2 soldiers took position in vents above while the rest circled behind. On the leader's mark, it began. Explosives rigged to nearby conduits detonated with a muffled boom, plunging the checkpoint into darkness. The aliens shouted, their deep voices echoing through the blackened halls. Then came the shots, silent, precise, and deadly. One by one, the aliens fell, their massive frames hitting the floor with dull thuds. The SEALs didn't stop. They moved forward, planting charges on communication hubs and control panels as they went. The flagship's systems began to fail in sections, lights flickering, alarms sputtering half-heartedly. Confusion rippled through the alien crew. They hadn't prepared for this. Their enemies were unseen, their attacks devastating and precise. In the command center, reports began flooding in. Power failures. Security breaches. Crew unresponsive. The aliens shouted orders, but there was no coordination. Their war doctrine, built on overwhelming force, couldn't adapt to an enemy that struck from the shadows. The SEAL leader placed the final charge at the base of a reactor junction. As he set the timer, he activated a comm line that broadcast directly into the flagship's command frequencies. "This is your wake-up call." His voice growled, calm and unyielding. "You thought we'd roll over. You thought we'd break. But you just learned the hard way: we don't lose. Earth doesn't kneel." The detonations began seconds later, rippling through the ship like a chain reaction. Consoles exploded, conduits sparked, and entire sections went dark. Fires broke out, smoke filling corridors. The SEAL team moved quickly, slipping back toward their extraction point as the ship fell into chaos behind them. "Extraction in 60, one SEAL reported, glancing at his countdown timer. Alien forces scrambled, shouting over the sound of failing systems. They still hadn't seen the humans, only the devastation left in their wake. The flagship trembled, power flickering, its pride reduced to panic. The team reached the shuttle just as explosions shook the core of the ship, and they launched into space, leaving the crippled vessel behind. The SEAL leader watched the flagship from the viewport, flames visible even from orbit. "They'll remember us," he said quietly. "We made sure of that." The flagship burned, its hulking form crippled and flickering against the vast darkness of space. For the Galactic Empire, this was unprecedented. Reports poured in from surviving officers: chaos, power failures, and an enemy they still hadn't seen. Entire sections of the ship were unresponsive. Sensors had failed. Communications were down. The commanding officers stared at their screens in disbelief. This wasn't an act of sabotage, it was humiliation. One alien, his voice shaking, uttered what none dared say aloud. "It's the humans. They did this." Those words spread like a virus. Whispers of fear turned into realization. The humans had infiltrated the mightiest vessel of the Empire, reduced it to a crippled husk, and vanished without a trace. The galactic commanders barked orders, trying to re-establish control, but their fleets were paralyzed. They had always relied on overwhelming force, never strategy. They didn't understand what they were up against. Humanity, meanwhile, moved fast. Earth's militaries had prepared for this moment with a ruthlessness that mirrored centuries of warfare. While the Empire flailed, Earth's forces struck with precision. Jamming arrays hidden on satellites cut through the Empire's communication lines, fragmenting their coordination. Long-range ballistic strikes targeted their weakest ships, vessels exposed without the flagship's command network to guide them. On Earth, civilians watched as news feeds flipped from terror to hope. Reports flooded in. The Empire's fleets were retreating, pockets of human resistance were emerging, and more alien vessels were being crippled. The victory wasn't complete, but it was enough to send a message. Humanity would not fall quietly. In a distant control room aboard another alien ship, an Imperial commander reviewed the carnage unfolding across the fleet. His claws scraped the surface of his console, his expression blank with disbelief. "How?" he muttered. His subordinates had no answers. Their technology was supreme, their fleet unmatched. The humans shouldn't have been able to fight back, let alone strike at the heart of their fleet. Yet here they were, adaptable, unpredictable, dangerous. "They are primitive," another alien said as if trying to convince himself. "They shouldn't, they can't, do this." "Then explain this," the commander growled, gesturing to a screen displaying the smoldering remains of the flagship. "They've turned our strength into weakness. Our size into a liability. They learned how to fight us faster than we could stop them." Across the fleet, confusion turned to fear. Alien soldiers whispered of invisible enemies who struck from nowhere, weapons they could not stop, and tactics that defied everything they understood about war. This wasn't just rebellion. This was survival, and humanity fought as if they had nothing to lose. Back on Earth, broadcasts relayed a single message from the SEAL team's mission. Though the voice was distorted for security, its meaning was clear. "You came to conquer us. You thought we'd kneel. But you've made a mistake. Humanity doesn't surrender. We endure. We adapt. And we win." The message spread like wildfire across the alien networks, broadcast by human hackers who had breached the Empire's communication systems. To the galactic species who watched from afar, it was a warning. To the Empire, it was a declaration of war. The aliens, for the first time in millennia, faced an enemy that didn't fear them. Where others surrendered, humans resisted. Where others ran, humans adapted. They didn't need superior technology. They used ingenuity, strategy, and a will to fight that no empire could break. In orbit, Earth's forces struck the Empire's remaining ships with renewed ferocity. Every blow carried the weight of vengeance. The Galactic Fleet, once invincible, fractured, its forces scattering to retreat. Humanity had shown them their weakness. Their arrogance had left them blind to what true warriors looked like. On board one escaping alien vessel, a younger officer turned to his superior, his voice trembling. "What are humans?" he asked quietly. The commander stared into the void where Earth loomed, a small, defiant planet that had brought an empire to its knees. "They are a species that refuses to die," he said finally. "And we have woken something we cannot control." The Empire's fleets withdrew, their massive ships disappearing into hyperspace one by one. Humanity watched them go, battered but unbroken. The victory was not without cost, but the message was clear. Earth was not a weak, primitive planet. It was a crucible forged in fire and war. For the Galactic Empire, this was only the beginning. Humanity would not wait for their return. They would prepare. They would grow stronger. The next time the Empire came, Earth would be ready. The SEAL leader stood quietly in a military bunker, watching the alien retreat on a flickering display. He didn't smile. The job wasn't done. But they had won a chance, one the Empire never thought they'd have. "They won't underestimate us again," he said. A quiet voice from behind replied, "Good. Let them fear us."